Hey guys, it's Aaron Farmer here with my sugar-free journey, and we are on day 17, I believe. Let me check my notes here. Day 17 of our 28-day weight loss challenge, and today we're going to discuss the government's role. Oh, my wife is over there watching videos.
No, somebody sent me one.
We're going to look at the government's role in obesity and kind of how we got to this point now that we're that we're all so big. So the big food companies are on record as saying that that sugar is not the problem, that a calorie is just like any other calorie, and that the key to weight loss is everything in moderation, and sugary drinks and processed foods can be part of a healthy lifestyle. I think by now, if you've made it through 17 days of, of this 28-day challenge, you know that's really not true. But how do we get here? We didn't used to be fat. The obesity epidemic only started being a thing in the last 50 years or so. The big problem is that the sales numbers for the food companies tell us that the more sugar they add to a product, the more that we want to buy it, the more we like it. And this is why we now have sugar added even to foods that used to not have sugar, like yogurt and ketchup. All that fruit in the bottom, yogurt that they're selling, the reason that they're putting that in there is so they have an excuse to put more sugar in your yogurt. In fact, one of the earliest times that we began to realize this was in the early 1900s. There was a cereal war, basically, between Kellogg's and Post. They had their breakfast cereals. They're trying to get them on the tables of every American. And Kellogg's had their cornflakes, frosted cornflakes, and Post had their Post Toasties. These were almost identical products. They were just cornflakes. However, Kellogg's outsold Post almost 6-1 because Kellogg's frosted their flakes. They put sugar all over their flakes. And that's what led to, that was the first time that the cereal companies realized that they could sell more cereal if they added much sugar to everything. And then that's why when you go to the grocery store now, it's an entire store aisle of cereals, and 90% of them have added sugar. Maybe even higher than that. Maybe 95, 99% of them have added sugar. So high fructose corn syrup hit the store shelves in about 1970. At first we were wary of it, but it had a price point of about half of regular sucrose, so the almighty dollar won out. President Nixon, and you're going to find that a lot of the issues that we have with our food supply go back to President Nixon. President Nixon noted that food prices could be a source of political unrest, so he told his Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz is his name, to take the price of food off the table as a political issue. He pushed a huge corn subsidy through Congress as a part of the Farm Bill, and now the federal government pays farmers to grow corn, which makes corn cheaper. And if corn is cheaper, that makes high fructose corn syrup cheaper. And if we could put high fructose corn syrup in everything, then that makes all food cheaper. And so, problem solved. That's why we can have 99-cent hamburgers and cheap food and have buckets of soft drinks for $1. I mean, that's where all this is coming from. It's because the federal government subsidizes corn growers. But then the McGovern Commission, in response to Ansel Keys' flawed dietary study, which we've talked about a couple times, decided to push America to eat less fat. Well, the problem when you take all the fat out of the food is it tastes like cardboard. Well, what do you do when you're trying to make a low-fat, food that tastes good enough for people to buy? Well, you add a bunch of sugar to it, and that's why all of the low-fat cheeses and milks and low-fat desserts and snack oil. That's why they have so much added sugar to them, is because the federal government told us, hey, don't eat fat. So the trade-off for not eating fat is to eat more sugar. And then in 1980, Hurricane Allen wiped out the entire Caribbean sugar crop. With sugar prices soaring, Coca-Cola had no choice but to take the sugar out of their drinks and replace it with high fructose corn syrup. Well, once the industry leader did that, pretty much every other drink manufacturer did the same. That's why all of the soft drinks on your soda aisle are sweetened with high fructose corn syrup. So by the 1990s, high fructose corn syrup became the most common sweetener in the U.S. And while in equal amounts, it is no worse for you than table sugar, it's in everything, so we're consuming a lot more of it than we ever did of just regular sugar. And that's actually a big selling point for the high fructose corn syrup council, or whatever it's called, where they say that high fructose corn syrup is no worse for you than sugar, and that's true. In equal amounts, if you eat an equal amount of sugar and an equal amount of high fructose corn syrup, it will cause the same amount of metabolic damage and cause you to gain about the same amount of weight. The problem is that it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's in all of our food. You cannot get away from high fructose corn syrup. And the foods that don't have high fructose corn syrup have other sugars, and the ones that don't have other sugars have grain fillers. So our body is constantly being bombarded by these foods that cause us to gain weight. So are there other reasons to add sugar to everything? Oh yeah, sugar can cover up and enhance other flavors. So this is another reason why the food industry puts it in everything. Let's say you you are bottling some tomato paste and you're using unripe tomatoes because you just don't have time to wait for those tomatoes to ripen on the vine. Well, tomato paste made from unripe tomatoes is a little bitter. It's a little sour. So what do you do to cover up the sour taste? You add sugar to your tomato paste. That's why, or your tomato sauce, whatever. That's why all of the spaghetti sauces on the shelf have sugar in it. Let's say you have something like bad trail mix, and you're putting a bunch of salt in it to cover up the fact that all the ingredients are of low quality. What do you do to balance out the salt? You add sugar. Something that's really bitter, like chocolate. What do you do to make chocolate taste good? You add sugar to it. Sugar fixes everything. So that's another reason why the food industry just puts it in as many different foods as they can, because we like it makes everything taste better, and they know that we'll buy it if there's much sugar in it. You want to cook out, you want a nice big brown piece of meat. When you cook out, it's the sugar in the barbecue sauce that makes that browning happen, the Maillard reaction we talked about a few weeks ago. And the browning of a piece of meat gives it a tangier, smokier flavor. And so if you're a fast food company and you want to be known for your delicious meat, you put sugar in it, and you get that browning reaction happening, and it tastes better, and that's what's happening. Sugar also adds texture. Let's say you make a cake with Splenda. It'll be sweet, but it won't be fluffy. Baked bread without sugar won't rise because the yeast needs sugar. It needs to eat sugar. Flat wafers without sugar aren't crispy. Ice cream without sugar is hard as a brick. Soft caramels without sugar aren't as chewy. So sugar adds a wide variety of texture to the foods as well. Sugar is a preservative. So when you're processing food, you want that food to be able to stay on the shelf for a long time without spoiling, which is doubly important when you process food, because when you process food, what do you take out? You take out the fiber. And that fiber, you do that because the fiber limits the shelf life for food. And high fiber foods don't freeze well. So you need to take that fiber out of the food, put in more sugar to keep everything from spoiling. And so what you have is a bunch of different factors coming together and throughout the food industry, and the net result is that we add a lot of sugar to our food. We just do, and by we I mean the food industry. And when the food industry does it, we eat it. I mean that's processed food is cheaper. Processed food stays on the shelf longer. Processed food doesn't spoil. I mean these are the kinds of things that we have to deal with, as we begin to clean up our diet. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is don't eat processed food. Eat food that can go bad. Eat fresh produce. Produce can go bad, but that's a good thing. If food can go bad, it means something is digesting it. And if something is digesting it, it means you can digest it. Eat fresh meat, eat fresh dairy, eat fresh produce. These are good things, and you're going to see good things happen to your body when you do it. When you get rid of all the chemicals and all the sugar that's in processed food, amazing things will happen. All right, so that's it. That's day 17. So we are well on our way, almost over halfway through our 28-day challenge. Can't wait to see what happens moving forward. Appreciate you guys for watching. If you want to see the transcript for this episode, down in the information section below the video, I'll put a link over to the post. Or if you're watching this on mobile, up in the top right-hand corner up there, click on that, and it'll take you over to the post. And please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you. Appreciate it. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.